kid from the bush who grew into a legend in his own lunchtime, former SAS soldier Michael J. Malone has seen it all. This is Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, hosted by the man himself, Mick Malone, along with Toby Malone, as they examine this long, storied career in the Australian Special Forces. Join us each week for behind-the-scenes insight, exclusive readings, and brutally honest truths from a true original. Welcome to Never Die Wondering. Welcome to episode 24 of Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, a podcast that explores the life and legend of Michael John Malone, OAM. My name's Toby Malone, Mick's son and co-host of this podcast series, joined by the man whose name is in the title, Mick Malone. Hey, Dad.
Hi, Toby. How are you, mate?
Good. So how's it feel reminiscing about the time in the bush? Does the memory, is it a traumatic memory? Is it a fond memory? We're sort of talking now about sort of getting into these patrols. Do these...
Oh, no, they're generally fond memories, except when the whips are cracking.
Yeah.
Um,
And
uh,
so we're starting to get into a bit of that whips are cracking kind of area. So is
yeah.
remembering that, is that so something that is...
No, the memories. I don't have a drama with memory. There's a few things that do stick in my mind, but nothing too dramatic.
And so did you feel as though you ever had any issue with PTSD um, as a
Oh, a
result of
little
any
bit.
of this?
Yeah. Sometimes I dream of a haunted man. I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and leap out of bed and
Hmm.
think, what the hell was that? You know.
Yeah.
But in the main, I'm pretty sane, even though I shouldn't be saying that. DVR will probably take my pension off me.
Yeah.
But it's all good. I'm
Did that...
pretty pleased to be in one piece still.
Yeah. So did that, how was it coming back to Australia? I mean, we're going to get there, but back to Australia was the memories of those when it was much more recent, when it was only within the last few months or years, did it stay with you more then, or is it, um, or yeah, I'm just, yeah, or is it better now, or was it better? Has it gotten worse over the time?
There's a few triggers. The boys in Afghanistan triggered a lot of memories of Vietnam for me.
Hmm.
The way they were treated when they got home was worse than the way we were treated.
Right.
Um, and my father was treated before that.
Right.
Unbelievable. And the Korean War veterans, those poor buggers, geez.
Yeah. But yeah, but the thing that you're about, the chapter we're going to read today, we're going to be talking about stuff that most people would have no conception of, including myself. I really sort of lived your war through your stories and through this sort of thing. So just the reality of it and how you put one foot in front of the other after having gone through that, having gone through moments when you see another human who wants to kill you. um, it's
Yeah.
a...
But my mates keep me alive.
Yeah.
Mates are all, and family, of course, but mates can really relate to what you go through. And I make and receive about 4 or 5 phone calls every day
Hmm.
from everyone from Tika Gray to Kirk Hez to um, Terry Flynn, uh, all the Queenslanders. So I just keep in contact with them. It keeps me on an even keel.
Good. Well, let's get into the chapter. We'll read about some of this unthinkable action, and we'll chat about it on the other side. So today we're going to be reading chapter 21 of Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone, OAM, published in 2024 by Imprimatur Books, Perth. This chapter, entitled Hotting Up, covers pages 163 to 168 of the print edition. The ebook may have slightly different numbering, so follow from the beginning of the chapter. As we read the body of the text we read by author Mick Malone, whenever we come across a footnote, we'll pause in the least disruptive way possible, and I will read the footnote. And now, without further ado, Two Ranks on the Road.
Chapter 21, Hotting Up, 1969. 5 cent, 10 cent. The next area of interest was the Hutzik area to the northwest of Courtney Rubber. Things were certainly hotting up for us. The warning order came in the next few days. The five-man patrol, recce patrol, a couple of k's southeast of Courtney, running astride the route running through the Hutzik to the Maytown Mountains. The infill went according to plan, and it wasn't long before we hit a well-used footpad. Pancho sent the signal forward that we had enemy behind us and shits were trumps. The PC decided a quick halt would be judicious, but Pancho insisted the VC were following us up and we should keep moving. Looking back at Pancho, he was still giving the enemy sign, thumbs down. We propped in all-round defence, and I strung out a ground wire. We came up in clear with the contact word, knowing that this would activate 9 Squadron boys. We made sure we were in a slight clearing and waited. The VC were calling out to each other and firing shots in the air, trying to flush us out. There were moments when the pucker factor, or 5 cent, 10 cent.
Footnote: Memories of the roping and repelling reaction. Under live fire, though, your ass goes from the size of a 5 cent piece to a 10 cent piece and back again, considerably more violently.
Sorry to put that in there. So named for the involuntary state one's nether region gets into under stress, yet you push through it. We hung until we could hear the chopper coming, and then quickly moved to a small clearing. We threw smoke, and the chopper came in fast, piloted by Squadron Leader Crimmins. We were whisked back to NADZAB uh, pad in short order. Weapons cleared and down to the lines. Where Reg was in deep discussion with our PC and the OPSO, it came to pass we were to go back in there pretty soon. Two of our number would be staying home, and the Kiwi, Fred Barclay, Bad News Barclay, would join us as 2IC of the four-man patrol. I wish it had been a 10-man patrol with machine guns. The works, quite frankly. We we reinserted a day later, just enough time to replenish our ammunition and rations. This time Sir Charles seemed to be everywhere. We heard him, then we saw him on various tracks, groups of us up to 10. I recall a young woman armed with an AK and wearing a pink scarf. The next day we bumped into two NVA soldiers on a track. Terry dropped one and the other ran off. Immediately shots rang out from in a line across our front. So we had no other option but to turn around and scarper. We propped around 100 metres north and got comms where the contact code were activated the choppers. I had barely time to pack up my radio and take up in my aerial before we were on the move again. By the time the choppers arrived, we were hearing and seeing enemy advancing towards us. The VC still hadn't found us, so we took the opportunity to put on our Swiss seats and prepare for the hot extraction. Just then, two VC appeared in light scrub. We dropped one, Terry Hancock, I think, and the other went to ground. It may have been hit. He may have been hit. The chopper called for smoke, and the VC tried to close with us, using the smoke as cover. We let fly at where we thought they were. Then the ropes came crashing down. We all grabbed a rope and hooked on with our carabiner as we were pulled up. We were firing all the while. Our two under Novas let fly with 40mm bombs. We noticed out of the door, one of the door gunners, Tassie Walters, had nailed a VC, and we kept firing. I changed mags whilst being hauled out very unceremoniously through the trees, which is, as it turns out, quite difficult. We got back to the DAT unscathed, although I seriously thought we were up for the cup. Lowered down onto the pad, we were greeted by quite a tribe of onlookers. Um, Lots of "on your boys" and various other comments. Felt good. With a bit of luck, Reg would not require us to go back in there. Well, not just yet anyway. We had a patrol brief just about right away, and then dispersed to clean our weapons and again replan our ammo. By about this time, I decided to ditch the plastic rifle and go back to the big gun, the SLR. The main debrief by the OPSO, Tony Haley, um, occurred just before dinner. Once this was out of the way and the PC had submitted his written report, complete with patrol trace, we headed for the boozer. Each patrol was allowed a carton of beer after a contact patrol, and we learned Reg was contemplating allowing us to go to Vung Tau for 3 days R&C. After a skinful, I staggered off to bed, but I noticed Pancho had packed up and left. Where's he gone? I thought. Next day, we found out he had been moved to I-Troop. Our PC had spat the dummy and had him removed because of what happened in the bush. We were not too happy with this shit, but it was what it was. Kirkez was one of the most professional soldiers in the squadron. He did 2 combat tours with 3 Squadron and finished at the lowest rank possible. What sort of justice was this? We couldn't get a trip to Vungas for a couple of days, but we had plenty to do around the lines. We were all a little pissed off with the loss of Kirkez and asked Woofer, our troop sergeant, to do something about it. He said he would speak to the boss, but nothing came of it. We got down to the R&C camp in Vung Tau after a couple of days. We stayed at 9 Squadron's lines at the RAF base and spent a lot of our time at the Peter Badco VC Club on Back Beach, which had surf club attached with plenty of surfboards and for use by bush-weary soldiers. Also, for those chasing a bit of the other, there was Vung Tau town and the myriad of bars. One of the most memorable infamous patrols happened around the 4th month when we put together in a 10-man fighting patrol with patrols 4-1 and 4-3 combined, led by Robertson with Bill Harris as 2IC, with Arnold, Malone, Callahan, and Byrne.
Footnote, after RTA, Jimmy left the regiment to pursue a career in St John's Ambulance in WA.
McCarthy,
Footnote, Dennis transferred to the Q system in the regiment on RTA, did a second tour with 2 Squadron in 1971. Years later, he was seen in the 2 Commando Q store in Melbourne.
with Bill Harris as 2IC, with Arnold, Malone, Callahan, Byrne. McCarthy, Bilborough, Fagan,
Footnote, after RTA, Mick headed back to Tasmania.
and Dorr.
Footnote, Gary left the unit on RTA and moved back to Queensland.
The area was the May Towers, and our job was to find the enemy camps. Intel had it that a lot of NVA regulars were infiltrated into Phuoc Tuy from the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which came down the Cambodian border and into the May Tao Mountains. On the second day in, we hit a maze of tracks, and before we knew it, we'd hit a VC bunker system. There were NVA VC in the system, and we could hear them talking. We crept up to within 15 metres and observed an enemy in green uniform sitting on the other side of the mounded earth, luckily facing away from us. I'm not sure whether he heard us or someone else saw us, but he jumped up with an AK and fired a burst which all went over our heads. Stanley Bilber immediately dropped him with the well-aimed shots while the rest of us got stuck in. We then highlighted out and back to regroup and were surprised that no one was hit. We marked the position on our maps and next scared past the position on to Nui Dat. Later, they announced that an airstrike, an OV-10 Bronco, was brought in. We moved away at a fast clip and propped at this stage. One member, Jimmy Byrne, had a lung infection and found it difficult to breathe. He coughed incessantly and had a sweat rag halfway down his throat to stifle it, so we had decided to get him out. We found an ideal pad among the bamboo thicket and propped there, close to the ideal landing pad, ideal for a chopper. The middle of our day, when things were quiet, I put out my aerial and got comms requesting medevac. Reg agreed to send the medevac for Jimmy, but refused to pull us out and told us to move 500 metres north. To make it worse, we'd had an insurrection in the patrol as we LUP'd in a clump of bamboo. Two shots rang out. We immediately thought the enemy had crawled up close and opened up. We all went for our weapons and hugged the ground. The patrol commander said, "Don't shoot, it was me." He'd been fiddling with his M16 and accidentally fired two shots through the LUP, coming close, very close to one member's head. We were all shocked, thinking the VC had up on us. R reacted instinctively and leapt up, enraged, knowing how close those rounds had come. "You nearly shot me," he exclaimed. Bill Harris, the patrol commander, calmed everything down. Uh, Patrol 2IC calmed everything down. Once things calmed down, I was told to contact base and request immediate extraction. They came back and said they would pick up the ill member, but the rest of the patrol was to continue with the task. We're all still in a state of shock when Paul Callahan led off in a southerly direction. We're all pretty juvenile and showed little interest in patrolling, and there was not a very many happy campers from this time on, I can tell you. This was a serious low point in my army career to that date, thus far. Once we'd extracted, the drama continued space. Roberts reported R to Reg for insubordination in the field, although it was Roberts who had caused the whole thing. This was a serious injustice perpetrated by the OC and patrol commander and should have been dealt with, but never was. It still rankles me to this day. The R redress went on for years, and he was the only one to suffer from it. Home in Sydney on leave around 1973, I was told to report to Victoria Barracks to be interviewed by a certain colonel on the R affair. He quizzed me on the details and I told him what had happened. I marched out and nothing further occurred. Roberts went on to brigadier, although in fact the R saga may have been the reason he never made Major General. My last patrol with Chris Roberts nearly be, nearly became my last one. Gary Dorr was our new 2IC and Cowboy Mellington from 152 Signal Squadron came along as our SIG. I was the medic and George F. Scout. On day two, we discovered an occupied VC camp bunker system with up to a company strength. They obviously felt pretty safe as their raised voices and music could be clearly heard. We LUP'd quite close to the camp and slept with our packs on, no cooking or smoking. Up at Sparrows, ready to move, we sat listening for quite a while before we moved. Initially, the PC and George crawled out to get a better look. We found the way impeded by a tangle of bush in a gully. The enemy movement on the other side. We sat back in the LUP till midday, listening and recording everything we heard. When we eventually moved, the plan was to skirt around and approach the camp from the opposite direction. As we were moving through some thick trees, we hit a well-used track and propped. We spotted 3 or 4 VC coming down the track, 2 with a pig on a stick. George unbelievably stepped out in the track and called, "Dong Lai," which is halt, and then shot them both. The PC was very pissed off, which we had now stirred the hornet's nest and shits were trumps. We were in a desperate situation, we all realised. So as we scarpered down a creek line, Gary signalled Buku, many enemy, hot on our trail. We propped again and gave them at least one mag each. The enemy was sharp and threw everything at us, including RPGs, one of which exploded near us. I don't mind admitting I was stunned by the explosion, and my brain had gone walkabout. as we got through the creek, the wader wire was particularly thick, and we struggled to get through. The others extricated themselves, but I was caught up. The PC came running back and literally dragged me out by the webbing, severely scratching my face, hands, and shredding my clothes. I gave credit to Roberts for saving my sorry ass because death was constant companion that day. We moved to at a good pace, sure that the follow-up would continue. About a click, 1,000 metres away, we stopped and got comms. Wouldn't you know it, Reg turns up in the 161 Recce Sioux chopper to see for himself. He spotted a force of enemy 300 to 400 metres behind us, and more patrolling us, paralleling us. He agreed to extraction, and pickup choppers were soon on the way. The LFT got stuck in, and the enemy most probably suffered many casualties. Back at the DAT, there were plenty of mates waiting, especially Kev Logan, the medic. Later that day, he would once again swathe my cuts and scratches with mercurochrome, the panacea at that time for cuts and scratches. End of chapter.
All right. So that was chapter 21 of Two Ranks on the Road, 35 years of Australian Special Forces service, as read by Mick Malone, the author. So, wow. So this is the action.
Hairy period, mate. Hairy
After
period.
after a couple of quiet patrols, you got anything but.
Yeah, that was the case with most patrols. You get a quiet one, then a hot one, then another hot one, then a quiet one.
Hmm.
And that's the way the 12 months went.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a couple of big things going on in there that the the insubordination issue,
Oh,
the shooting the
disgrace.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and obviously it's all been said in the chapter, but it's one of those things that I guess in a lot of ways it comes down to how it's reported when it comes back. People, and we've already seen instances where we've seen people who weren't put up for for medals because it would make the patrol commander look bad. We saw that with John Matten. Now we're seeing here that the patrol commander's report is the only thing that's really sort of means anything, regardless of what actually happened out there.
Yeah. Kirk Hess should have been a patrol commander.
Hmm.
He was sharp. He knew his stuff.
Yeah, but then he was kicked out,
Yeah.
and what do you think the reasoning was for that?
Well, officers tended to be a little bit sort of Victorian in the way they looked at things.
Right.
They were officers, therefore we had no right to question what they came up with.
Mm.
That didn't work a lot of the time, and especially in SAS, where we're encouraged to speak up.
Well, and you were all trained to be able to take on every role in the patrol.
Yeah, exactly right. So if Roberts had been whacked, Kirk Hess would have taken over, and we would have had a successful trip.
Right.
But he wasn't and didn't, and uh, he rang me recently actually,
Yeah.
but I won't talk about that.
No, no, fair enough. I mean, it's interesting though, because there's that incident which was a very negative incident involving Chris Roberts, but then the legendary incident, the one that we always talked about when I was a kid, was that final. It's the one that's talked about in Phantoms of the Jungle, and also you talk about here where you got caught up in the wait a while, and
Yeah.
you were meters away from being
Oh, yeah. I was
ended.
finished. If he hadn't come back to grab me through it, pull me through it, I'd have been killed on the spot.
Yeah. And that, I mean, what's going through your mind in that moment when you're caught up in that tangle of bush and you see the rest of your patrol ahead of you and you hear the enemy on your tail? I mean,
Shit for Trumps, mate.
yeah, and and this was not long after you'd been kind of rattled by a explosion. Your brain was,
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was it. We're all still finished. but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, I remember when growing up, I mean, we spent a little bit of time with the Roberts family when I was a kid, and Chris Roberts' daughters used to point to that section in Phantoms of the Jungle as a instance of their father's contribution, and they were very excited to meet you because they were like, "Oh, you're the bloke that they pulled out of the bush." I still remember
Yeah,
that very clearly when we were living in Canberra. But yeah, it's interesting because you have someone who you go in on one hand you go, oh, that wasn't a great experience being in his patrols, but in others, um, you owe him your life. So it's, I guess, in the fog of war, it's all bets are off.
yeah, and most patrols had a similar thing happen to them
Hmm.
under officers. Between you and me and everyone else, SAS blokes would rather not have officers at all,
Right.
um, because that's not never going to happen.
Hmm.
You need an officer in charge, theoretically to take the rap if anything goes wrong, but it never happens that way. Most of the SAS was always run by the sergeant's mess. The sergeant's mess was the power because all the officers would come in and go leave after 2 years and Scarborough. Some of the warrant officers have been there 20 years.
Mm.
But we had certain COs that came in who said, that's it, we're going to break this nexus. I'm going to put the officers' mess back on the forefront and the sergeants can chew it.
Mm.
But then the next CO would come in and realise, hang on, I better watch what I'm saying here.
Right.
But, you know, it was all part of the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's no, it's interesting just seeing this progression through your time there up in Vietnam, and seeing go from quiet to less quiet, and then the how this affects personalities and blokes getting moved on like Pancho, or moving around different kind of patrols and having those different experiences. I guess you learn a lot from
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you figure out what you're going to do next time, and we'll continue
You
to.
you've seen that series on television, Rogue Warriors,
No, no.
with Paddy Mayne?
Mm-mm.
Well, we all had a bit of Paddy Mayne in us,
Right.
basically jacking up against authority.
Mm.
And Paddy Mayne won 4 DSOs
Mm.
in
Right.
World War II.
Yeah.
They wouldn't give him a VC. No way.
Mm.
But he was fantastic, old Paddy. But that's how SAS is put together.
Yeah.
You've got a bunch of people thinking for themselves, still following orders, but um, getting on with it in their own way.
Yeah. Yeah, so lots of interesting stuff, and we're going to get to see more of it in next week's chapter, as the bullets keep flying. So lots to talk about. But that is all the time we have this week for Never Die Wondering. Join us next week for the next instalment of our exploration of Mick Malone's career as we get into the 22nd chapter of the book itself, entitled Copping It. If you have a copy of Two Ranks, read along with us. I've been Toby Malone, and thank you to Mick Malone for heatedly joining me on this journey.
My pleasure, boyo.
This has been Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words. For links to purchase your own copies of Mick's books, visit the show notes or mickmalone.com.au. This podcast is produced by Toby Malone, Joe Malone and Mick Malone, and engineered by Toby Malone. Theme music is The Happy Wanderer, the official SAS march, as reimagined by Cormac Malone and Meg Logue Malone. Yes, this is a family affair. This is a GM production in association with Imprimatur Books.